You may be losing self-respect every day without realizing it. Not when people insult you, not when they reject you, but in the exact moment you smile and say, "It's okay," when it isn't. Think about that. What if the reason you feel overlooked, emotionally drained, and secretly resentful has nothing to do with how others treat you? But Buddhist wisdom reveals something far more unsettling. Many people are not losing respect from others. They are losing respect for themselves. What if it begins with the ways you have learned to abandon yourself? Most people never notice this trap. They call it kindness. They call it patience. They call it being the bigger person. But Buddhist wisdom warns that what looks like compassion can sometimes be attachment in disguise. And that single misunderstanding quietly steals your confidence, your peace, and eventually your identity. By the end of this video, you'll understand why and discover the hidden shift that makes begging for respect completely unnecessary. Your cage has no bars. What if the prison stealing your peace is not outside you, but inside you? What if the deepest wound in your life is not criticism, rejection, or disrespect, but the quiet habit of needing other people to tell you who you are? Many people spend years chasing acceptance, never realizing they have handed the keys of their inner world to strangers. The moment another person's opinion becomes your emotional weather, your peace begins to rise and fall with forces you cannot control. A wise teaching says, "The hand reaching for approval cannot hold freedom." Sit with that for a moment. How much of your exhaustion comes from trying to be understood, liked, chosen, or validated? How many decisions have been shaped by the fear of disappointing someone? The answer may reveal a truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Imagine a bird born inside a beautiful golden cage. It is fed, it is protected, it is praised. One day, the door opens. The sky is waiting, yet the bird remains where it is, not because it cannot leave, but because it has forgotten that freedom exists. Many human beings live the same way. The cage is invisible. Its bars are made of approval, expectations, and fear of judgment. You may believe other people control your self-respect, but look deeper. The suffering begins the moment your worth becomes dependent on their agreement. When someone praises you, you feel valuable. When someone rejects you, you feel diminished. Your identity becomes a reflection in other people's eyes rather than a truth rooted within yourself. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine every opinion you have feared floating past, like leaves on a river. Some are kind, some are harsh, some are completely wrong. Yet the river continues moving without holding a single leaf. Life moves the same way. Opinions arrive. Opinions leave. They were never meant to become your home. Now ask yourself honestly, who currently has power over your peace? What opinion are you most afraid of losing? And if nobody approved of you tomorrow, who would remain? The answer to that final question may become the beginning of genuine self-respect, because the day you stop asking the world for permission to exist is the day you begin to remember the sky beyond the cage. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I choose my worth." 2. The child who never left. Why do intelligent, capable people still struggle to respect themselves? Why can someone achieve success, gain experience, and appear confident on the outside, yet still feel deeply dependent on the approval of others? The answer is often hidden far beneath the surface. Many adults are not responding to the present moment at all. They are responding to old fears that never fully left. The need for approval is not always weakness. More often, it is unfinished survival. Somewhere in the past, a younger version of you may have learned that love felt conditional. Perhaps you were praised when you performed well, stayed quiet, pleased others, or became who people wanted you to be. Without realizing it, you began believing that acceptance had to be earned. A wise teaching says, "A wound ignored does not disappear. It learns to speak through behavior. Years pass. Your appearance changes. Your responsibilities grow. Yet the wound quietly follows you. It wears adult clothes. It speaks through overthinking. It speaks through people-pleasing. It speaks through the fear of disappointing others. And each time you abandon your truth to gain approval, the wound grows stronger. Imagine a great tree standing in a forest. Long ago, lightning struck its trunk. The tree survived. It continued growing taller each year. To anyone passing by, it appeared strong and healthy. Yet beneath the bark, the scar remained. Human beings often carry emotional scars the same way. We learn how to function, we learn how to smile, but hidden fears continue shaping our choices. This is why self-respect cannot be built by changing the opinions of others. It begins by understanding the child within you who still feels responsible for earning love, the child who fears rejection, the child who believes that being accepted is more important than being authentic. Close your eyes and imagine standing before your younger self. Look carefully at their face. What are they still desperately trying to earn? Approval, safety, validation, permission to be enough. Now ask yourself with complete honesty, what did you believe you had to do to be loved? Which childhood fear still guides your choices today? And are you living your truth, or simply protecting an old wound? The answer may reveal that your greatest struggle has never been with other people. It has been with a story you learned long ago and now have the power to release. 3. The daily betrayals nobody sees. Most people believe self-respect is destroyed in dramatic moments. They imagine it disappears after a public failure, a painful rejection, or a major mistake. But that is rarely how it happens. Self-respect leaves quietly. It slips away through small decisions that nobody notices. Decisions repeated so often that they begin to feel normal. The moment you silence a truth that needed to be spoken. The moment you ignore an uneasy feeling inside your chest. The moment you agree to something that conflicts with your values. These moments may seem insignificant, yet they shape the relationship you have with yourself. Every time you abandon your inner knowing, you send yourself a silent message. My truth is less important than keeping others comfortable. A wise teaching says, the deepest betrayal is the one committed against yourself. Reflect on that carefully. The pain of being misunderstood by others can heal. The pain of being rejected by others can fade. But when you repeatedly reject your own voice, something within you begins to lose trust. And once that trust weakens, peace becomes difficult to find. Imagine a ship sailing across a vast ocean. The ocean itself is not the danger. The waves are not the danger. A ship sinks only when it allows the water outside to enter within. Human beings are much the same. Criticism, pressure, and expectations will always exist. The real danger begins when you allow those forces to override what you know is right in your heart. Think about your own life. Perhaps there was a moment when you knew a relationship was harming your spirit, yet you stayed. Perhaps you knew a decision was wrong for you, yet you agreed. Perhaps you wanted to speak honestly, but fear convinced you to remain silent. In those moments, the loss was not your opportunity, your reputation, or someone else's approval. The loss was a small piece of self-trust. Pause for a moment today. Recall one time when you ignored what you knew was right. Feel the difference between peace and compliance. One nourishes your spirit, the other slowly empties it. Now ask yourself honestly, where are you currently abandoning yourself? Which truth have you delayed speaking? What boundary have you been afraid to honor? Because self-respect is not built through grand declarations. It is built the moment you stop leaving yourself behind. 4. The kindness that destroys you. Here is a truth that many people spend years misunderstanding. Being nice and being compassionate are not the same thing. From the outside, they can appear identical. Both may involve helping, giving, listening, and supporting. Yet, beneath the surface, they often come from completely different places. One is born from wisdom, the other is often born from fear. Many people who constantly please others believe they are being kind. They say yes when they want to say no. They carry burdens that were never theirs to carry. They remain silent when their heart is asking to speak. They sacrifice their peace to avoid conflict. Over time, this behavior begins to look like generosity. But deep inside, something else is happening. They are not serving from love. They are negotiating for acceptance. A wise teaching says, "A candle that burns only for others eventually disappears." Reflect on this carefully. Real compassion does not require you to abandon yourself. Real compassion includes you. It honors the dignity of your own mind, your own energy, and your own truth. When kindness requires self-erasure, it slowly transforms into resentment, exhaustion, and quiet suffering. Imagine a well in a village that gives water every day. People come with buckets. The well serves everyone generously, but imagine that no rain ever falls. No streams refill it. No care is given to its source. At first, nobody notices. The well continues giving. Then one day, it runs dry. This is what happens when a person spends years pouring into others while neglecting their own inner life. Many people fear disappointing others because they secretly believe rejection will follow. So they keep giving beyond their limits. They keep smiling through exhaustion. They keep saying yes while their spirit whispers no. Yet every act of self-abandonment creates a deeper distance between who they are and how they live. Place your hand on your heart for a moment. Feel its quiet rhythm. Ask yourself honestly, is your kindness flowing from abundance or fear? Are your actions rooted in genuine compassion or in the hope that others will continue approving of you? Then ask even deeper questions. Where has kindness become self-sacrifice? What are you afraid will happen if you disappoint someone? Are you truly serving others, or are you slowly abandoning yourself? Because self-respect begins the moment your compassion stops excluding the person who needs it most. You. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I choose my worth." Most people understand attachment when it comes to money, possessions, or status. They recognize how easily the mind can become trapped by the fear of losing something valuable. Yet there is another attachment that quietly shapes countless lives, and very few people ever see it clearly. It is the attachment to being liked. This attachment often disguises itself as kindness, responsibility, or social harmony. But beneath the surface, it creates the same suffering as every other form of attachment, because attachment always carries the same hidden message. I cannot be okay unless this remains. It says, I need this person's approval. I need this relationship to stay exactly as it is. I need everyone to understand me. I need everyone to be pleased with me. And the moment your peace depends on these conditions, your freedom begins to disappear. A wise teaching reminds us, whatever you cannot lose controls you. Sit quietly with that truth. If your emotional stability depends on being admired, then admiration becomes your master. If your identity depends on being accepted, then acceptance becomes your prison. What controls you is not the thing itself, it is your fear of losing it. Imagine holding a handful of sand in your fist. At first, it feels secure, so you squeeze tighter. Yet the harder you grip, the faster the grains slip through your fingers. This is the nature of attachment. The tighter you cling to approval, the more anxious you become. The more desperately you try to keep everyone happy, the more disconnected you become from yourself. Notice your breath for a moment. Feel the air enter and leave without effort. Your breath does not cling. It does not demand. It arrives and departs naturally. Peace begins to return when you learn to live the same way, appreciating what comes without becoming dependent on it. Valuing people without surrendering yourself to keep them. Perhaps this is the attachment nobody talks about. Not the addiction to wealth or success, but the addiction to being liked. The addiction to avoiding disappointment. The addiction to maintaining an image that no longer feels true. Ask yourself honestly, what are you afraid of losing? Who are you trying to keep happy at your own expense? What attachment is quietly stealing your peace? Because the moment you stop gripping what was never meant to define you, something remarkable happens. You begin to respect yourself more than your fear of losing approval. 6. When silence becomes power. Why do some people radiate a quiet strength that can be felt the moment they enter a room? They are not always the loudest. They are not always the most admired. Yet there is something steady about them. Something deeply grounded. Their presence feels peaceful because they are no longer spending their lives trying to convince the world of their worth. Many people exhaust themselves defending every choice, every belief, every decision. They explain why they changed. They explain why they left. They explain why they said no. Beneath all that, explaining is often a hidden hope. Maybe if they understand me, they will finally approve of me. But self-respect begins to grow the moment you realize that your value does not increase when someone agrees with you. One of the deepest truths in spiritual life is this: truth requires no defense. A mountain never argues with the wind. Storms may strike its surface, seasons may change around it, yet the mountain remains unmoved. It does not waste energy proving that it belongs where it stands. Think about how much of your life has been spent explaining yourself to people who had already decided not to understand. How many sleepless nights were created by rehearsing conversations in your mind? How much energy was lost trying to gain validation from those who could never truly give it? This is a burden many people carry without realizing it. A lion does not explain why it is a lion. It simply walks. There is wisdom in that image. Genuine confidence is not noisy. It does not seek permission. It does not demand recognition. It comes from knowing who you are, even when others misunderstand you. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine releasing the need to justify every step of your journey. Feel the weight slowly leaving your shoulders. Feel the freedom that appears when your peace is no longer tied to another person's approval. There is great power in silence, when that silence comes from inner certainty rather than fear. Now, ask yourself honestly, what are you constantly trying to prove? Whose validation are you still chasing? What would change if you stopped defending yourself? Perhaps the next stage of your life will not require louder arguments or better explanations. Perhaps it will require something much rarer: a calm mind, a steady heart, and the courage to let your life speak for itself. 7. The strength of disappointing people. There is a moment in every genuine transformation that feels uncomfortable, even frightening. It is the moment you begin respecting yourself. Not the version of yourself that exists to please others, not the version that bends to every expectation, the real you. And when that moment arrives, someone will likely be disappointed. This surprises many people. They assume that personal growth will be welcomed by everyone around them. They believe that becoming healthier, stronger, and more honest will improve every relationship. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it reveals truths that were hidden for years. The reason is simple. Not everyone benefited from your growth. Some people benefited from your silence. Some benefited from your inability to say no. Some benefited from your fear of conflict. When you begin honoring your boundaries, the balance changes. And those who are comfortable with the old version of you may suddenly become uncomfortable. A wise observation says, every meaningful boundary reveals a hidden dependency. The moment you stop overgiving, someone notices. The moment you stop explaining yourself, someone questions it. The moment you choose your truth over their expectations, resistance often appears. This does not mean you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it means you are finally doing something right. Imagine a river that has flowed in one direction for many years. Then, slowly, it changes course. Some boats lose their familiar path. Some travelers become confused. Yet the river does not stop flowing simply because others preferred its old direction. It follows its nature. Your life is no different. Respecting yourself will occasionally disappoint people, but disappointing others is not the same as harming them. There is a profound difference. One is an act of honesty. The other is an act of injury. Too many people sacrifice honesty because they fear being misunderstood. See yourself now choosing truth over approval. Feel the discomfort that arises. Then look beneath it. Notice the calm hidden there. Notice the quiet strength that appears when your actions finally align with your values. Ask yourself honestly, who becomes uncomfortable when you grow? Which boundary have you delayed setting? What is the true cost of avoiding disappointment? Because every time you abandon yourself to keep everyone happy, you pay with your peace. And every time you honor your truth, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "I choose my worth." 8. The peace of walking away. One of the greatest misunderstandings about strength is the belief that strong people win every battle. They do not. In truth, the strongest people often appear to lose arguments, release grudges, and walk away from conflicts that others would spend years trying to win. Their power comes from understanding something deeper. Not every battle deserves their energy. Many people spend months, even years, carrying invisible conflicts in their minds. A harsh comment, a betrayal, a misunderstanding, a conversation they wish had gone differently. Their body moves through the present, but their attention remains trapped in a moment that has already passed. This is one of the quiet ways peace is lost. A wise teaching says, "Not every invitation deserves your presence." Reflect on that carefully. Every argument is an invitation. Every insult is an invitation. Every attempt to pull you into drama is an invitation. Wisdom is not found in accepting every invitation. Wisdom is knowing which ones to decline. There comes a point in personal growth when you realize that winning an argument does not always bring peace. Being right does not always bring freedom. Sometimes the mind becomes attached to proving a point long after the heart is asking for release. And what begins as a disagreement slowly becomes a prison. Imagine a tree standing peacefully through the changing seasons. Leaves fall around it every day. Some drift gently. Others are carried away by strong winds. Yet the tree does not chase them. It remains rooted in its nature. Human beings suffer when they chase every falling leaf, every opinion, every conflict, every criticism that crosses their path. Now, imagine releasing a conflict that has occupied your mind for months. See it drifting away like a leaf carried down a quiet stream. Notice what happens inside you. The conflict may leave, but something more valuable remains. Space, clarity, breath. Peace. Detachment is not indifference. It is not pretending that nothing matters. It is the wisdom to recognize what deserves your attention and what deserves your release. Walking away is not weakness. Sometimes it is the highest form of self-respect. Ask yourself honestly, what conflict are you carrying unnecessarily? What would happen if you simply let go? Which battle is no longer worth your energy? Because real power is not found in holding on. It is found in knowing when to open your hand and let the burden fall. 9. Your fear of loss is the real prison. Rewritten script. Most people believe they are controlled by difficult people, unfair situations, or the expectations of society. But if you look deeply, you may discover something surprising. Very few people are controlled by others. Most are controlled by what they are afraid to lose. They fear losing approval, so they stay silent when their truth needs a voice. They fear losing relationships, so they tolerate what weakens their spirit. They fear losing status, so they become trapped in roles that no longer reflect who they are. They fear losing comfort, so they avoid the very changes that could transform their lives. This is one of the deepest forms of suffering. The prison is not the thing itself. The prison is the fear of living without it. A wise teaching says, "The chain is strongest where attachment is deepest." Think about that carefully. Every fear has a hidden attachment beneath it. Fear of rejection often hides attachment to approval. Fear of loneliness often hides attachment to certainty. Fear of failure often hides attachment to a certain image of yourself. Many people spend years obeying fears they have never questioned. They arrange their lives around avoiding discomfort. They choose familiar suffering over uncertain freedom, yet the mind was never meant to live in constant obedience to fear. It was meant to awaken beyond it. Imagine yourself standing before a doorway. On one side is comfort. Everything there is familiar. The routines, the habits, the explanations, the excuses. Nothing changes. Nothing grows. On the other side is freedom. Not guaranteed comfort, not guaranteed approval, but freedom. The freedom to live honestly, the freedom to speak truthfully, the freedom to respect yourself, even when others disagree. Pause for a moment and notice which direction your soul wants to move. Beneath all the noise, beneath all the fear, there is often a quiet voice that already knows the answer. Ask yourself honestly, what loss scares you the most? How much of your life has been built around avoiding it? And what freedom might be waiting on the other side of that fear? Because the final lesson of self-respect is this: the door of the prison was never locked. The fear of leaving kept you inside, and the moment you become willing to lose what is not truly yours, you finally discover what can never be taken away: yourself. 10. The moment everything changes. There comes a moment in every awakening that changes everything. Not because the world changes, not because people suddenly begin treating you differently, but because you stop negotiating your value with them. You stop placing your worth into the hands of strangers, situations, achievements, and opinions. You finally realize that the battle was never about proving yourself. It was about remembering yourself. For years, many people live as if their value is on trial. They search for evidence, more success, more approval, more recognition, more reassurance. They keep presenting new arguments to a world that was never qualified to decide their worth in the first place. And no matter how much validation they receive, it never feels like enough. Because the problem was never a lack of proof. The problem was a lack of belief. A deep truth appears here. What is real does not need permission to exist. The mountains do not ask whether they deserve to stand. The ocean does not ask whether it deserves to flow. The stars do not wait for applause before they shine. Their existence does not depend on approval. It is simply their nature. Consider the sun. Every morning it rises without asking the sky. It does not negotiate its place. It does not ask whether it has earned the right to appear. It rises because rising is what it was created to do. In the same way, your worth is not something you achieve. It is something you recognize. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself standing firmly within your own presence. Nothing added, nothing removed. No titles, no achievements, no praise, no comparisons. Just you. Notice what remains. Beneath every fear, every role, and every expectation, there is a quiet dignity that has been there all along. This is the moment everything changes. Not when the world finally understands you, not when everyone approves of your choices, but when you stop asking them to. Ask yourself honestly, where are you still negotiating your value? What proof are you still looking for? What would happen if you simply accepted yourself now? Because the strongest form of self-respect is not forcing others to recognize your worth. It is no longer doubting it yourself. The day you stop asking the world who you are, your true life begins. 11. The freedom of losing. This is the secret hidden beneath every lesson we have explored, beneath the need for approval, beneath the fear of rejection, beneath the struggle to prove your worth. Self-respect begins the moment you can afford to lose. This sounds frightening at first. The mind immediately asks, lose what? Lose approval, lose control, lose the image you carefully built for others. Lose the false identities that were created to gain acceptance. Lose the masks that helped you survive but no longer allow you to live freely. And yet, something remarkable happens when you stop clinging. You discover that what is real within you was never dependent on those things. Many people spend their lives protecting what was never truly theirs. A reputation can change. Status can disappear. Relationships can transform. Opinions can shift overnight. The suffering begins when we mistake these temporary things for the foundation of who we are. A quiet teaching says, what cannot be taken from you becomes your true home. Reflect on those words carefully. If something can be removed by time, situations, or another person's decision, it cannot be the deepest truth of your identity. The deeper truth must exist beneath all of it. Imagine a great tree standing through the seasons. When autumn arrives, it releases thousands of leaves. It does not cling to them. It does not panic as they fall. It does not believe its life is ending. The tree understands something profound. Letting go is part of staying alive. It trusts the arrival of spring long before spring can be seen. Sit quietly for a moment. Imagine life removing everything that was never truly yours. The need to impress, the fear of judgment, the endless comparisons, the exhausting effort to control every outcome. Watch them fall away like leaves carried by the wind. Now, notice what remains. Beneath every attachment, there is awareness. Beneath every role, there is presence. Beneath every fear, there is a part of you that has been untouched from the beginning. Ask yourself honestly, what are you unwilling to lose? Is it serving you, or is it controlling you? And what part of you remains when everything else falls away? Because true freedom is not found in possessing more. It is found in discovering that your wholeness survives every loss. And the day you realize that, no force on earth can take your self-respect away. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, I choose my worth. Bonus. The respect you chase is already within you. There is one final truth that quietly waits beneath everything we have discussed. It is simple, yet it has the power to change an entire life. The respect you have been chasing from other people is often the very respect you have not yet given yourself. Think about how many years are spent seeking confirmation from the outside, waiting for someone to appreciate you, waiting for someone to choose you, waiting for someone to acknowledge your value. Yet even when those moments arrive, the satisfaction rarely lasts. A new doubt appears, a new fear rises, a new need for validation takes its place. The cycle continues. This is the great irony. The world cannot permanently give what only your own heart can establish. No amount of praise can create self-respect if you continue abandoning your truth. No amount of approval can heal the wound created when you ignore your own inner voice. A quiet teaching says, the search ends where the self returns. These words contain a deep freedom. Perhaps the peace you seek is not somewhere ahead of you. Perhaps it has been waiting beneath the noise all along. Imagine a traveler who spends his entire life searching for water. He crosses deserts, climbs mountains, and journeys through distant lands. He believes the answer exists somewhere far away. Then one day, tired from the search, he returns home and discovers a spring flowing beneath the ground where he began. The treasure was never absent, only overlooked. Many people live this way. They search the world for proof that they matter, while ignoring the quiet dignity already present within them. The moment you begin honoring your own values, speaking your truth, protecting your peace, and keeping promises to yourself, something changes. The chase begins to end, and peace begins to enter. Take one slow, deep breath. Return to yourself. Not the version created by fear, not the version built from other people's expectations. Return to the part of you that remains when all masks fall away. Then ask yourself honestly, have you been searching outside for what already exists within? What would self-respect look like today? What is one act of self-honoring you can choose right now? Because the people who respected you the least were never your greatest loss. The moments you abandoned yourself were, and the moment you return to yourself, your true life begins. Quick summary. Your cage has no bars. Self-respect disappears when your worth depends on other people's opinions. Approval feels comforting, but it slowly takes away your freedom. The more you need validation, the less connected you become to yourself. True peace begins when you stop letting others decide your value. The child who never left. Many adult insecurities are old emotional wounds seeking resolution. People-pleasing often begins as a survival strategy learned early in life. What once protected you may now be limiting your growth. Healing begins when you recognize the past is no longer your master, the daily betrayals nobody sees. Self-respect is rarely destroyed by one major event. It weakens every time you ignore your truth and silence your voice. Small acts of self-abandonment create deep inner conflict over time. Honoring yourself consistently builds unshakable inner strength, the kindness that destroys you. Being compassionate does not mean sacrificing your well-being. Many people confuse fear of rejection with kindness. Constantly pleasing others often comes at the cost of your peace. Healthy compassion includes respect for yourself. 5. The attachment nobody talks about. Attachment is not limited to people or possessions. You can become attached to approval, praise, and acceptance. The need to be liked creates hidden suffering. Freedom grows when your peace no longer depends on validation, when silence becomes power. Not every criticism deserves a response. Strong people do not waste energy proving their worth. Inner certainty removes the need for constant explanation. Silence becomes powerful when it comes from confidence rather than fear. The strength of disappointing people. Growth requires the courage to disappoint others sometimes. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may resist your change. Respecting yourself often means choosing truth over approval. Temporary discomfort leads to lasting freedom, the peace of walking away. Not every conflict deserves your attention. Walking away can be a sign of wisdom rather than weakness. Protecting your energy is an act of self-respect. Peace often arrives when unnecessary battles end. Your fear of loss is the real prison. Most people are controlled by what they fear losing. Fear of rejection, status, or approval influences countless decisions. The greater the fear, the stronger the attachment. Freedom begins when fear no longer controls your choices. The moment everything changes. Your value does not increase when others recognize it. It exists whether people acknowledge it or not. Self-respect grows when you stop seeking permission to be yourself. The turning point comes when you fully accept your inherent worth. The freedom of losing. Self-respect deepens when you are no longer terrified of loss. You stop clinging to approval, control, and false identities. What is truly yours cannot be taken away. Freedom appears when attachment loses its grip. The respect you chase is already within you. The respect you seek from others begins with how you treat yourself. People often search outside for what is missing inside. When you honor your truth, external validation loses its power. The journey ends where self-acceptance begins. If there is one truth hidden beneath all these lessons, it is this: Every time you chase respect from others, you unknowingly move farther away from yourself. The world teaches you to earn worth, prove worth, and defend worth. But Buddhist wisdom reveals something far deeper. Your worth was never missing. The suffering began the moment you forgot it. Self-respect is not built through achievement, status, or recognition. It is built through the quiet courage of refusing to abandon yourself, even when doing so costs you approval. Zen philosophy teaches that a tree does not struggle to become a tree. It simply grows according to its nature. In the same way, peace arrives when you stop performing for acceptance and start living in alignment with your truth. The strongest people are not those who control others, but those who are no longer controlled by the fear of losing them. When you stop chasing what was never meant to define you, you finally discover what can never be taken away. Tonight, ask yourself, if I truly respected myself, what would I stop tolerating, stop chasing, and finally let go of? The answer may become the beginning of your freedom. If this wisdom resonated with you, please like and share this video and share your thoughts and experiences in the comment section below. For more inspiring Buddhist insights on living a peaceful, powerful, and awakened life.